Module number 12, Control Flow Statements. A computer follows certain instructions to perform particular task. In some situations, we may want to repeat some instructions a certain number of times, or we may want to execute some instructions based on some conditions. In order to execute or in order to control this flow of execution, we use control flow statements. C supports two types of control flow statements. One is decision control flow statements, loop control flow statements. Let's discuss each of them one by one. Decision making statements. Decision making statements. Decision making statements also called as branching statements. These decision making statements involves in whether particular condition has occurred or not. Depend upon this condition, the next instructions will be executed. The types of the decision making statements are if statements, switch statements, and conditional operator statements. Let's see how to discuss each of them one by one. It is a powerful decision making statement. If statement is a powerful decision making statement. It is basically a two-way branching statement. The generic form of if statement is if test expression. Whenever this type of statement exists in your program, the computer first check the test expression. Depend upon this test expression, the statements will be executed. If statement may be executed in the different types of if statements are simple if statement, if else statement, and else if ladder statement. We have to discuss each of them one by one. Simple if statement. The generic form of if statement, simple if statement is if expression, statement 1, and next statements. The flowchart for if the flowchart for if statement is simple if statement is the flowchart for simple if statement is shown on the board. There is whenever the control comes to if statement, first it evaluates expression. If this expression is true, the statement block will be executed. If expression is false, the next statements will be executed. Consider here, if expression is true, then the time statement 1 will be executed and next statements also execute. Whenever this expression is false, then the time only the next statements will be executed. Before discussing all these things, we have to recollect the things about true and false. True means non-zero value. And false means zero value. Whenever we are evaluating the expression or condition, we will check this condition is true or false. In this case, it is non-zero value that resembles, that is true. If here we get zero value, that means false. Suppose consider some cases like if a equals to 1. In this time it will compare 1 with a. It is equivalent to a or not. If it is equivalent to a, then the time this condition will be true, otherwise condition will be false. Consider examples. If a equals to 6, if a equals to 1, and if not equals to a. In these three cases, the first case is we are assigning 6 to a, means here value is 6, that is non-zero value, means if true. Here the condition is true. In this case, we are comparing 1 with a or some other value. We are comparing 10 with a. If both are equal, if a before that statement some 10 is assigned to a, or we will get some value to a is 10, then the time both are equal, or otherwise it is false. This 10 will be compared with a. If a is 10, the condition will be true. The condition will be true when a equals to 10. Here we are performing if not a. This will be depend upon the value of a. This will be depend upon the value of a. If a is 0 value, if a is 0, then the time condition will be true. If a is non-zero value, the condition will false. The condition will false. If statement is, the next type of if statement is if else statement. This if else statement is the extension for simple if statement. Here we have the generic form of if else statement is if the next form of if statement is if else statement. The generic form of if statement is if expression statement 1 else statement 2 and next statement. If expression is true, whenever this type of statements exist in your program, then the time first it computes expression. If this expression is true, the control will goes to statement 1. Otherwise, the control will jump to statement 2. That is, if expression is true, the control goes to statement 1. If control is false, then the time the control will jump to statement 2. After that, it will execute next statements. The flow chart for if else statement is shown on the board. That is, if expression is true, the control will goes to statement 1 block. Otherwise, or expression is false, it will goes to statement 2 block. After that, it will execute next statements. The next form of if statement is else if ladder. The next form of if statement is else if ladder. Whenever there is multiple decisions are involved or multiple paths are exist, then the time we will go for else if ladder. That is the generic form of else if ladder is if expression statements else if expressions statement 1, likewise it will goes to else and next statements. Whenever this type of situation, whenever this type of statements exist in your program, then the time the expression will be execute first. If this is true, then the time the statements will be execute and next the control will jump to next statements. And similarly, if suppose assume that expression is false, then the time it will jump to the control will jump to else if block and it will evaluate expression 1. Expression 1 is true, then the time the statement 1 will be execute and the control will goes to jump to next statements. Otherwise the control will goes to expression 2. That means expression is false and expression 1 also false, and it will comes to expression 2 and it will check expression 2. If this expression 2 is true, then the time statement 2 will be executed, and next after executing statement 2 it will goes to next statements. Let us assume expression 2 also false, then the time that means expression is false, expression 1 is false and expression 2 also false, then the time it will go to next else if block. If there is no else if blocks, it will goes to statement block, it will goes to else block and it will execute statement K. After executing this statement K, it will goes to next block, next statements. Let us consider one example on grading system. One institution is giving grading system as follows, like the equivalent of else if ladder for that problem. The grading can be done using else if ladder as follows, like here the grading is done by using of average of marks. So if average is greater than 80, the student get the grade is excellent. Else if, and again we are checking 70 to 80, that is average is greater than 70, grade equals to A. This means it will check 70 to 80, that is here we are checking average greater than 80, that means 80 to 100 we are checking. Here it will check 80 to 100. If this condition is fails, means below 80 this condition will be fail, means 80, 70, from 0 to 80 range it will be fail. Again we are checking average greater than 70, means it will check from 70 to 80. If a student got marks in between average of marks in between 70 to 80, then the time A grade will be assigned to that student. Like that, else if marks or we will check this condition and this condition and this. Let's look at this example. The example on if else. Here 10 is assigned to A and the condition is, let's look at this example. In here 10 is assigned to A and the condition is A less than 20. A less than 20. The statements will be executed on this condition. If this condition is true, the if block will be executed. Otherwise, the else part will be executed. Here 10 is less than 20, so condition is true. So the if part will be executed, that is less than 20. The answer will become, the output is less than 20. One more example on if else. And we are taking the values from keyboard and we are taking values to x and y. The condition is if x equals, here we are giving values from keyboard to x and y. Suppose we are giving 5 and 10. Suppose we are giving 5 and 10. Suppose we are giving 5 to x and 10 to y. Here it will perform x equals to y. It will compare x and y. 5 equivalent to y. 5 equivalent to 10. It will test this condition. This condition is false. So the control will jump to else if statement. Here it will check x greater than y condition. Here it will check x greater than y condition. In this example we have two conditions. Once it will fail, it will jump to next else if block. So here it will perform x greater than y. This condition is true or false. Now 5 greater than 10. The condition is false. The condition is false. So it will goes to next statement, that is it will goes to else part. Why? Because there is no else if statement. So it will goes to else part. There we have x is less than y. So the output will become x is less than y. The output is x is less than y. One more example on else if. In this example 0 is assigned to A and the first condition is A equals to 10 and next condition is A less than 10. So we are going to check first condition, that is if A equals to 10. Initially 0 is assigned to A, so 0 is checked with 10. This condition is false. So the control will goes to else if statement. There we will check A less than 10. There we have 0 is less than 10. We will check 0 is less than 10. This condition is true. So the statements at this condition will be followed. The statements followed this condition will be execute. That is A is less than 10. The next, let us consider one example on if statement. Whenever this type of segment occurred in your program, then the time this else is associated with which if statement, first if statement or second if statement. Generally this else is associated with nearest elseless if block, nearest elseless if statement. Whenever this type of ambiguity occur in your program, then the time the else will be associated with nearest elseless if statement. Here nearest elseless if statement is x less than y. So this else will be associated with this if, not first if. Let's assume 15 is assigned to x and 25 is assigned to y. 15 is assigned to x and 25 is assigned to y. Take two cases. In first case, assume this if is associated, this else is associated with first if. This is first if and this is second if. Let us assume else is associated with first if. In case 1, else is associated with first if. In case 1, else is associated with if. Blood వస్తుందా? టేస్ట్ పేరు వస్తుంది. Let's assume else is associated with first if, then the time the answer will become x is greater than y, 15 is greater than 25. This condition is false. So the case it will be execute x equals to 0. In case 2, let's assume else is associated with second if. Else is associated with second if, then the time first it will evaluate 15 greater than 25. So this statement is wrong. This condition is false. So the control will goes to next statement, that is if x greater than x less than y. Here it will check this condition. The condition is 15 less than 25. The condition is true. So it will execute, it will assign 10 to x. So it will assign 10 to x. The value is 10. So whenever this type of situation is occurred, answer is in one case x is equals to 0 and x equals to 10. Which one is correct? In if statements, according to C language, this else is associated with nearest elseless if. Here nearest elseless if is second if statement. So the answer is x equals to 10. The next decision control statement is switch statement. Whenever there is multiple choices cases, we will go for switch statement. That is, we have to select one case from multiple alternatives. Multiple choice means we will select one case from multiple alternatives. Then the time we will use switch statement, test the given variable against list of cases. Here the cases are value 1, value 2 and value 3. If that variable or that expression is equals to one of these cases, that is if the expression is equals to value 1, then the time that statement 1, the associated block will be executed. The switch statement tests the given variable, or it will test the expression against this list of case values. If the expression is equals to one of these test values, then the time the associated case statements will be executed. Here we have to use one more statement, that is break. The break is the optional one in the switch case. This expression may be integer expression or characters, and these values are constant expressions. These values are constants or constant expressions. These values must be constants or constant expressions. This expression may be integer expression or characters. If this expression is equals to one of these values, the associated statements will be executed. Once the associated statements will be executed, the next statement is break. In every case we are using break. This break signals end of the case statements, and it simply exits from the switch case. Suppose you think expression 1 is equals to value 1, then the time the statement 1 will be executed, and after it will goes to break statement. This break will it will exit from the switch case and jump to next statements. Or otherwise, if expression 1 is, suppose assume that expression is equals to value 3, then the time the associated statements with this case is statement 3. These will be executed, and because of this break, the control will jump to next statements. It will exit from the switch case and the control will jump to next statements. Left side of this slide, here one program is available on switch statement and else if statement. Left side of the program is written using else if statement, and right side of the program is written using switch statement. Here 1 is for open file, and 2 is for save file, 3 is for save as file, and 4 for quit. And here the variable is, the integer variable is a. Examine left side of the program, that is if a equals to 1, open file, that is a function. Open file is a function. We will discuss these functions in next modules, so don't bother about this one. Whenever a is equals to 1, it will execute open file. Whenever a is equals to 2, it will execute save file. Whenever a is equals to 3, it will execute save as file. Otherwise, it will quit the program. Yes, similar equivalent code of switch statement is, if case is 1, open that file, and case is 2, save that file, and case is 3, save as that file. That all are functions. If a is matched with 1, let's assume you entered 2 then the time the 2 is assigned to A. The matched expression is case 2, means it saves the file. Whenever it sees the break, the switch statement will be exited from that one, and it goes to next statement of the following switch statements.